I would like to pass the mic, the virtual mic here over to our guest speaker, Dr. Ghita Carroll, who's here from Boulder Valley School District. And I'm going to stop sharing and let Lauren
That's for
do
you.
this here.
Thank you, Sharon. So now we'll hear from Boulder Valley School District. They're located in Boulder, Colorado. BVSD is continuing to move forward to support outdoor learning. During the pandemic and beyond, they recently launched a new Green BVSD action plan, which lays out a path for the next 5 years for incorporating sustainability into leadership, curriculum, climate, culture, and operations. Supporting green schoolyards and outdoor learning is an important component of the new plan. We also have a case study on BVSD in our library that will drop in the chat. And spearheading these efforts is today's speaker, Dr. Ghita. As an introduction for Dr. Carroll, Dr. Ghita Levenstein Carroll is the Sustainability Coordinator for Boulder Valley School District. She is a pioneer in advancing district-level sustainability planning and initiatives, and her award-winning work has touched tens of thousands of students. Dr. Carroll's successes include defining a vision and goals for district-wide environmental sustainability, receiving Board of Education approval for a policy that supports sustainability initiatives, and significantly, green building design strategies, outdoor learning, and environmental awareness throughout the district. Previously, Dr. Carroll managed the energy program for University of Colorado Boulder's Environmental Center, where she developed and led a university wind power campaign in 2000, making the school the first in the nation to raise student fees to support wind power and the largest university purchaser of wind at the time. Dr. Carroll was previously an instructor for Sustainable Practices program at the University of Colorado Boulder, where she also received a PhD in environmental studies. So now we'll hear from Dr. Carroll. After her presentation, we'll have a little Q&A time, so feel free to drop questions in the chat she can address at that time. And with that, Dr. Carroll, welcome. It's great to have you here again. And I'll go ahead and get your presentation sharing.
Perfect, thank you. I am thrilled to be here today with you all. Thanks for having me back to give an update on how things are going this year and give a little update on the new Green BVSD action plan that we just launched. All right, so I'm going to just jump in to say that we are located in Colorado. We're actually not just in Boulder. We are in 9 municipalities. We have 56 schools covering 4.1 million square feet of operations, and we're also in 3 different counties. We have upwards of 27,000 students and 4,000 staff. And we are just finishing up a bond and construction program where we were able to do pretty substantial improvements to all of our schools. So we have a history for supporting sustainability in our district. So we actually created our first sustainability plan in 2009, and we did a specific energy plan in 2013. Then we did a progress, kind of 5-year progress report in 2015. And just last spring created a 2021 progress report celebrating about 10 years of having a plan in place for supporting sustainability at a district level. And all of those plans are on my website, which assuming we'll get that up by the end and can share that information. So what our sustainability planning has helped us do is to kind of acknowledge our efforts around this work, coordinate as an organizational system, provide meaningful measures and KPIs so we can track our progress and successes. It's helped us partner and align with local and national agencies and report out to our public. So again, all of this work can be found online. And we often say, why do we continue to support this work around sustainability of the district? We know, in public K-12 education, there's a lot of really pressing priorities. So why do we continue to prioritize sustainability? One of the biggest reasons is health. Health is a primary motivator around a lot of this work. And So last year, of course, shined a huge light on the importance of health in this work. So in our sustainability work, we have always had a focus under health around outdoor learning. We've always had an importance on good indoor air quality, access to healthy foods, and all three of these things really became like district level national priorities for all of us last year. And at first I was surprised at how much, sustainability work and this pandemic really kind of went hand in hand in terms of finding good solutions. I would just say additionally, another thing under health that we've always prioritized under our sustainability work is sustainable modes of transportations to and from our schools. And that also became more important than ever. During the pandemic, we continue to have huge bus driver shortages. There continue to be concerns of parents with kids on buses. So getting kids to school by biking and walking and having accessible paths to their schools has been more critical than ever. So just kind of keeping the loop in terms of how health is just deeply embedded in the sustainability work that we've done as a district. We closed down in March 2020, just with the rest of the world, and immediately tried to figure out how we could come back together safely, get kids in for in-person learning. We relied on, the same sorts of guiding documents that everybody was using, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, our local and state health officials, World Health Organization, American Academy of Pediatrics, were all guiding documents that we used to figure out how we should open back up. Our district created a 5-phase plan with the understanding that we would be in this for a couple of years and that we would be in one of these 5 phases and also hopefully easily be able to transition from phase to phase when needed. So last year, we were really in phases 1 through 4, depending on the time of year. We started the year at 1, middle of the year, we were at 1, by the end of the year, we were at 4. This year so far, I'd say we have been at 4 all year at all of our schools. So everybody is back in 5 days a week, but we do have pretty substantial precautions still in place in terms of how we're co-headed groups. Masking is currently required indoors and other safety measures in place. So the goal here with this 5-phase plan was to, number 1, ensure health, well-being of all the safety and students, staff in our buildings. Number 2, to maximize academic growth and achievement, always a priority, but continued to be a priority, provide supports for teachers and staff, and then to assure operational and financial viability. So also since March 2020, we have been working to figure out how to integrate outdoor learning as a key component and strategy and layer of this plan, and continue to help make help our district meet the priorities of getting kids back in school, safely learning in person. So some of this I covered in my presentation last year, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but I just know that I'm happy to answer any questions and share documents and links as we go. But one of the first things we did last year was to create a document outlining all of our existing designated spaces for outdoor learning and all of the spaces that could be easily modified for groups on our sites to share out with schools, to say, here you go, teachers and principals, here are the spaces that you can easily get to now, easily get a group of students to. As the summer went on, this also included spaces and parks that were right nearby and a group of students could easily walk to. As summer went on, we began to solidify our work with our local partners. So in addition to this amazing national group that I'll highlight a few times through this presentation, this has been such a huge help, we created a local group of folks that wanted to support this work in our schools. So we, some of the other things that we did last year was compiled resources for their schools, including those from this initiative with supply lists, the assessment tool that this group has to how to look at your site for needs. And we distributed this information widely throughout our communication channels to our teachers, principals, et cetera. So this year, we are continuing to encourage schools, teachers to use the outdoor as part of our pandemic response. So this is one of the many layers that we continue to prioritize and have in place. The language that you see on the screen went to all of our school leaders in our learning documents during the pandemic documentations for instructions for teaching and learning this year. So we are recommending that teachers are getting outside, and we're recommending that this is used for teaching and learning, for specials, for staff meetings, eating, extracurriculars, etc. And then, last year we included a lot of these things, like here's where you can do it, here's the supply list. But this year we just said, contact me for more questions. We have a lot of information on our website. One thing our IT department did and continues to do is offering outside Wi-Fi so that it's easier if classes want to go outside with computers, that they will do that. So how is it going? We have more schools than ever continuing to reach out for assistance and support on how to get kids outside. So as I mentioned earlier, masks are required indoors. So outdoors continues to be a very nice break for kids and teachers alike from masking, but also to have additional learning opportunities. So I've seen new things this year, like teacher conferences have been held outside, school dances have been held outside for the first time, community fall gatherings. So things that we couldn't do last year and would still not be able to do, we've been able to do successfully outside, which is, just so fun and exciting, and hopefully continued. We have some super champions. This picture on the left is one of our assistant principal who I just have been working closely with since this pandemic started. And just to iterate that, when you've got these champions at the school level, it just takes it that much further. So he, in addition to figuring out how he can support us, he really helps me understand what the barriers are for the teachers at the school. So for example, we know that access to restrooms and having extra staffing support to help when kids need to go inside are critically important. So for some of his teachers at this point, they'd say, we're happy to do it, but we can't, it's very hard for them as an individual teacher to have a group of students outside. If one kid needs to get inside and they can't send one kid by themselves all the way around the building to get in to go to the bathroom. And so there's just things like that we're working on to make it easier. We're currently still not allowing volunteers in our building or partners in our buildings as a response to the pandemic. So it's, over time, I'm hoping that, their outdoor learning volunteer can be a volunteer position, just like so many other positions we have in our schools, but that's not something that we can do at the moment. I'll also say that, concerns with access to schools and security continues to rub. So we are working with our security department to figure out how we, yes, need to have our schools be secure spaces, but also accessible for teachers to get back inside quickly if they need to, if they're outside with the group. So these are just some of the challenges that we're continuing to work through. So we did receive some grant support last year, and we're able to help schools with supplies. We know that seating and shading continue to be the top things that are requested by schools when we do have money. So here's some examples of different shade structures that we have at our schools. Other helpful things that we've been able to give are voice amplification for outside, wagons, whiteboards, storage containers for outside are all things that have been helpful to schools. And I just want to give a shout out to the Excel document that Green Schoolyards created. Enormously helpful, just so helpful. We were able to use that and tweak it for each of our schools. This document has supplies, costs, links, just makes it so easy to say, all right, here's what we have. Anyway, great resources on the site. These are pictures of some additional seating that we were able to do with grant money. And what this school wanted was seating that was accessible from the cafeteria. So on the right-hand side, you can see those doors that leads directly into the cafeteria. And they had this space and they said, we've got this beautiful space and we've got access to our cafeteria, but no place to sit. So we added in this table. Unfortunately, when I took this picture last week, I just missed lunch hour. But in the picture on the left, you can see there's a group of students using this beautiful space just last week. We also have many schools with gardens, and I saw that online today. I think Stephanie is online from Garden to Table, which is one of our amazing garden partners. And gardens continue to be a wonderful outdoor resource for learning. So in this middle picture is a group of students is giving a presentation by a Garden to Table on the winterization of plants. Our local group is also continuing to meet this year, the one we created last year. So we're meeting every other month. Again, this is consisting of folks from local municipalities, the University of Colorado, nonprofits, educators, principals, and parents. And many wonderful things have come out of this group of just meeting in and checking in with each other. So we've created online resources that are available for all teachers with outdoor learning exercises, activities, and lessons. We've given professional development support for teachers. We've given out weekly how-tos and tips for teaching outdoors. The City of Boulder and Growing Up Boulder led this year-long initiative at one of our schools focused on outdoor learning. Another thing I want to highlight is we had a group of master's students from CU pick 4 of our schools last year and another 4 this year to figure out how to design an ideal green schoolyard space, really working with those school communities. And they have phases of implementation, pricing, architectural drawings, and we have already turned those drawings into our planning and assessment department to say, this is what we hope for as we're forward thinking about future needs for our schools. So just incredible, work has come together. These are things that wouldn't have happened otherwise, and part of this collective. And I have a quote here from one of the fourth graders who was involved in that year-long program. She said, learning about the Wood Brothers project was awesome because it allowed us to use our creative thinking skills to come up with ideas for outdoor learning and helping us think how to use nature to grow our minds. So I love it. Such great work. So as switching gears and moving forward, we just launched our new sustainability action plan for the next 5 years. So this work took place over the past year during this pandemic. And I think that's very reflected in this new plan and its priorities moving forward. So it included a lot of staff interviews. We did a virtual community forum last March. There were several focus groups, review and feedback from an ad hoc committee, several opportunities for just kind of community comment and review, and then district leaders reviewed it over the summer. This plan has a new vision and mission for our sustainability work, that we are all together for all students and the planet. And our mission reflects some of those, why sustainabilities that I talked about at the beginning of the presentation. Why are we doing this in the first place? So this new plan looks different than our previous plans have looked. Our last plans have been pretty operationally focused, but the new plan looks at the 4 impact systems that you can see on this slide. So it does include operations, also includes curriculum instruction, climate and culture, and leadership. And again, that there's everything that's in this plan is targeting 5 years. So I'm just going to do really high level each of those 4 categories and talk about how outdoor learning is pretty specifically linked to each. So the overarching goal in our leadership is that we have consistent data reporting for 100% of our schools related to healthy, equitable, and sustainable school best practices. Please. So you'll see that supporting goals under this category are listed out here. And I'm just going to highlight that we're creating a dashboard for each of our schools to say, here's what's happening at the school that supports this work. And outdoor learning is a huge component of that dashboard and how we're reporting out successes at our schools. The next priority is strategic priority is facilities and operations. So this is where we have our big overarching goal around greenhouse gases and developing a water management plan that models responsible water use. So next slide. In our supporting goals here, the first one is that we are using green building principles to assess what our school needs are moving forward. So, historically, we look at the building and we see, okay, we need paint, we need this HVAC system, we need carpeting. As we move forward, we are going to also be looking at the outdoors and looking at how can we create green school yards at our schools as we're moving forward and using assessments. So that's just a huge piece there. Green school yards is also noted in the plan details about one of the many ways that we can continue to decrease water. I know there's a lot more information on the slide here than I'm getting into. I just want you guys to see the other components of the plan as well. Third area is curriculum instruction. So our overarching goal here is that all students at every grade level will have meaningful and developmentally appropriate experiences to develop sustainability knowledge, values, and behavior. So next slide has supporting goals here, and how we plan to achieve this is to look at how education for sustainability topics can be integrated into our common instructional units, and to offer professional learning for our school leaders and teachers related to this work. And we, outdoor learning, again, is a huge piece of that. And so we don't just want to create these spaces, we then want to make sure that we're providing the training to give the teachers confidence to use them. So that's been pulled out very specifically. And next slide, the final category is climate and culture. And here is where we have the goal that every single faculty, staff, and students have regular opportunities to experience sustainability in action at our sites. Next slide here. Number one supporting goal here is that every single one of our elementary schools has a green schoolyard and outdoor learning space, and that all of our secondary schools will have increased outdoor seating and shading. So we see this as a critical way of how we, how our students are going to experience sustainability is just by having that access to the outdoors. So next slide, please. We've got an action plan that kind of year to year maps out how we're going to do this. It is the year-to-year piece. These goals that you saw today are set in stone. These are our 5-year goals, but the year-to-year action plan will be evaluated as we continue to move forward and work. But we're really excited deepen our practice and continue this journey that we've been on for decades now towards healthy, equitable, and sustainable school district, where all of us are engaged in these activities and prepared to lead toward a sustainable future. And I am just thrilled at how embedded and how clear the association is with, getting outdoors has become with that work. So I think this final slide has some of my contact information. The website has our action plan on it, also our report from the past 10 years. If you're interested in that, we are on Green BVSDs on Twitter and Instagram for more information. And please feel free to connect with me directly as well for any of these documents or questions.
Thank you so much, Ghita. That was wonderful. So if folks have some questions for Dr. Carroll, feel free to drop them in the chat.
I just wanted to add to thank you so much, Ghita, for that fabulous presentation. And I'm so excited to see both the work that you've been doing on the pandemic response and this incredible plan that you just presented. It's so fantastic to see how integrated it all is and how much the grounds are valued in that process too. So thank you for sharing it.
Great.
We have one question from Becca Katz, who I know is also in Colorado. What are some of the program development opportunities to which you referred teachers so far to enhance their confidence with outdoor teaching? Great question.
I think
professional development. I'm sorry.
Yeah. We had, again, we've got this collective of sort of partners in our community that are supportive of environmental sustainability work that have been, come together as a collective much before the pandemic, and then, continued to operate together. And many of those folks offered specific training for our teachers per school request last year in terms of just how-tos and being comfortable and getting outside. So some of that was virtual. I think some of those were held outside. We did put together, I think Garden to Table, again on the line today, put together a really useful tip sheet that we shared with teachers too, just on managing classes outside. So those are some of the types of things that we've done. That answer the...
Grace asking, what do you hope the sustainability advisory group will do and what they'll accomplish? Who does the group give advice to?
That's a great question. And I mean, I think ultimately, I see the Sustainability Advisory Group as overseeing this action plan. And we want it to be interdisciplinary, many different departments, many different scopes, and just kind of more people engaged in making sure that we're moving forward. So it's a group effort more than an individual effort, and collective work more than just kind of coming from one department. And ultimately, this work gets reported out to the superintendent and the Board of Education is how we report on progress.
Wonderful. It's great to see different examples of how communities work together and elevate different voices at different scales. We have another question from Gina. What voice amplification technology? Okay, so talking about the logistics of outdoor learning, what voice amplification technology have you used outdoors? And do you have any recommendations for specific mics, speakers that still feel personal? And I'll share a link to a resource that we have, but if you could speak more to that from your personal experience, that'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, again, I would say we use the links and recommendations from this initiative. So you guys have all these things spelled out with links, and we really use that when we're doing the purchasing. And I have followed up with the schools who are using them to see how it's working, and then said it's been great. So I'm happy to share the links of which ones we actually purchased, but you guys have those links as well. Yeah. But I'm sorry, I don't know right off the tip of my tongue which ones they were, but I do know that it's been good reports on how they've been working. Another fun example is we have a lot of our music teachers float from school to school, and some of them, a lot of music has been taught outside, and some teachers still really want to move outside. So our music department is going to buy some of the music amplification or the voice amplification for them to kind of loan as they float from schools. It's just a slightly different model where it's not teacher with one specific school where the equipment would be on site. So we're trying to figure out how to also support those schools that are working with a lot of different.
Stephanie has a question about collecting data. So beyond counting how many outdoor classrooms exist, how can we collect data about who is using the outdoor classrooms and how often, for how much time?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's going to be part of the dashboard that we're using. So we're going to be doing a pretty comprehensive survey to schools with exactly that kind of question. And that's going to be how we start to get our baseline of, how frequently are these things being used and how teachers are being used. And then we'll, continue to collect that data over time. So we'll have some metrics around that. And then that information will be on the dashboard.
Wonderful. I know that there have been some researchers over time who've been thinking a lot about that particular question. So we have one more question from Arlene, and this is also my question. As we enter the colder winter months, how's winter weather affected outdoor learning plans? And maybe you could speak to how last year went for you.
Yes, well, last year we were shut down, and I'm trying to remember how this exactly worked, but what was it? Thanksgiving to basically after winter break. Everybody was virtual. But we did have elementary kids came back right away in January, and then by maybe late January, our secondary kids were back part-time. We went through so many iterations, but I guess, the question is, how has it affected it? It's not like we have put all of this aside during the winter and pack it up. We continued to put out the same messaging, a big part of it being dress accordingly, dress appropriately. We've had organizations who've, supported kids with additional clothing. We had schools get really creative about using lost and found items. And sure, you're probably going to see less of it during the winter. So, this is not required. We're not requiring anybody to go outside. We're highly recommending it as one of, many strategies that we're trying to use to keep kids in person as long as we can. So also here in Colorado, we of course do have winter, but in the middle of winter, you might find yourself with a, beautiful 70-degree day. The snow does not last too long outside. And I honestly think that as long as we have these pretty strict guidelines around masking inside their schools, that people are going to want to figure out a way to get outside. So I think we'll make it, they'll keep doing it. And, kids here know how to dress so that they can be outside in the winter. A windy way of answering that question, but it's not like we put the conversation on hold during the winter. We continue to move it forward. And if nothing else, it's a good time to plan for spring.
Good advice. Becca Katz put in the chat about their experience in Leadville, and I'll put a link to their case study from Leadville because they've got some similar winter issues. And yeah, thanks Teresa. It's a great opportunity to become more playful and physical. I've heard folks talk about making sure everyone's equally warm and dry. Tea parties, yoga, dance parties, getting kids moving. Wonderful. And Nancy also shared a really great resource in the chat about winter weather and planning for that. Baked potatoes, keeping hands warm. Wonderful. So if there aren't any more questions, maybe take one or two more questions. Thank you so much, Ghita. So wonderful to hear from you.
Really happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ghita. It's fantastic. So inspiring to hear what's going on.